In today's video, we're going to be deep diving into the upcoming pattern. We still have a massive Arctic blast on the way for early next week, so that's going to be a focal point of today's discussion. Also, some tropical concerns. We're going to be discussing that, as I mentioned yesterday. We're going to be daily taking a look at this as there is a couple of areas of interest. It's lower probability than Helene or Milton were, as I also made sure to mention many times. We're taking a look here, first off, at the European model, with basically all of its ensemble members showing a spaghetti plot here. And we see this threat here over the MDR, which is the area between Africa and the southern eastern Caribbean. And we do see that there is a system expected to kind of meander its way through. We do see kind of a flatter look here, and this is not historically a favorable track for this time of year. Typically, it's going to encounter some drier air, some shear. This is just a pretty volatile time of year. Typically, the homegrown systems are the ones that thrive this time of year, and what I mean by homegrown is, home for me is the United States. In the United States, we refer to it as homegrown. It's systems that kind of develop and start out nearby. And those typically in the late hurricane season like this have a much better chance of developing and unfortunately causing impacts like we saw with Helene and Milton. Those are two great examples of homegrown systems. They didn't have to cross the entire Atlantic like this. So while I am watching this, I am doubtful that it's going to be able to overcome all of the challenges ahead of it. It has happened before and it is a possibility, but the good news is there's a lot of time and a lot of opportunity for this one to get broken up. As of now, I'll try to move this. Let's move this forecast hour back actually a little bit and see if we can't kind of see. There we go. So we do get a little bit. I'm going to move it forward a tiny bit more. We do get a couple of ensemble models showing this system in the Southern Caribbean, but it just goes right through the Yucatan Peninsula. None of these really developing too much, and really none of them pointing towards the United States, thankfully. Let's take a look at the GFS model real quickly, which has been more on board with something coming of this. Interestingly enough, it gives this one out in the Atlantic a lot lower of a chance of seeing development than even the European model shows. We have a couple of systems. All of these are moving out to sea. These aren't likely to be tropical. I know a couple of them are, or at least one of them is, but it is just picking up overall low pressure systems, not just tropical ones. So that's like why we see this one here in Illinois crossing through the northeast. That's our nor'easter that we're going to be talking about today. So we see all of the lows kind of on screen here. We do see this homegrown system. We do get quite a bit of development on some of these, a lot of them taking the same track as the European model. We do have a whopping one taking this over Cuba and into Florida out of about 30 or more models. We have one, and then we do have a couple that want to flirt with the idea of kind of like a central Gulf Coast strike. So we do have a couple that are moving into some sketchy territory, but for now, the threat remains rather low, thankfully. So that is the good news I have for you today. Let's just move through the overall upcoming pattern. And today was rather quiet. Tomorrow is going to be quite a bit of the same. We do see some showers across the Great Lakes and into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast here. We see our Arctic blast is already striking these Midwest areas and going to be moving into the Northeast here by tomorrow. It's going to be starting out. So this is not a long-range cooldown whatsoever. This is happening. This is on our doorstep here, basically. And it is typical to see this unsettled weather along that immediate frontal boundary between this very Arctic air mass and the more mild air mass that we've had in place. As we take this towards Monday on October 14th, we do see this nor'easter here nearby Maine, so this is going to cause a lot of unsettled weather, just overall stormy conditions for the northeast and even the southeast of Canada there. Some wind might accompany that as well, and even some mountainous snowfall. We see some of that starting out for Canada, but we're going to be watching New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and even into northern Maine for some snowfall chances. We do see this massive ridge out west and then big time trough in the east here. This is really the driving factor here between all of this. This warm up out west is causing this cool down to really surge southward here in the east. Let's take it a step further towards Tuesday, and this is when this thing is fully taking hold here across a lot of these Midwest areas. Deeper south, also, you're not getting the Arctic, you're not getting the freezing air necessarily, but you are seeing much cooler than what things have been, and same story for the southeast here. But the truly very cold air compared to normal is going to be in this area here. This is going to be the coldest core of this air mass, and that's going to be for a lot of the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, as well as Eastern Canada. We still have a low very close by to Maine and Eastern Canada there, causing some snowfall concerns for Eastern Canada. But again, rainfall and wind is going to be our biggest concern with this one. Wednesday here, we see that does kind of calm down. We still have colder air around, especially in the East Coast. That is going to linger through the late week. So again, this might be a 4, 5, 6+ day cool down for a lot of areas, and that's why I'm calling it a long-term cool down. Typically, a little cold snap would be 1 or 2 days. This is looking more likely to be, maybe not quite a week, but approaching that type of time frame. We do see some stormy and cooler weather entering into the northwest, and this is typically a sign that would cause this cold air to lift off over time and this warm air to kind of fill in the gap there and move eastward. So that's the flow we're going to watch for here. Very stormy out west, some snowfall in the mountainous areas of Canada and the kind of Cascades there, so that's definitely something to watch for. As we reach towards Thursday on October 17th here, we do see some Rocky Mountain snowfall, Cascade snowfall, and rainfall showers around for areas surrounding. Again, your jet stream is doing, as I mentioned just a minute ago, really troughing over the west and now ridging over especially the central states, but even beginning for the eastern states here where things are rather quiet. Again, snowfall and rainfall showers can be expected throughout this entire corridor there. We aren't seeing anything in the tropics so far on at least the deterministic European model. Here's by Friday, and things get really interesting here. Perhaps one of our first, it might even be like the first major snowfall event for the Rockies, at least as far as widespread events go. And we're seeing that right here. We see a weaker low over eastern Colorado. The jet stream is extremely favorable for something like this to take place. Something like this. And you can expect that storm to follow that jet stream. We are seeing snowfall throughout Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and even into South Dakota there. Heavy snowfall even for the lower elevations there, especially in Wyoming. So this is pretty far out, but could be something interesting to track. And this is the time of year that we do watch for these very first major snowfall systems, and maybe even a little bit late, honestly, in the year for it. We do see that low does move up and kind of meet and join forces with this jet stream. It moves away from the cooler and higher elevation. We do see more precipitation around for these Rockies and Cascades, especially in Canada, bringing some more snowfall. And we're left with kind of this showery boundary here along a lot of your plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes. Now, as we keep going towards Sunday, this is the look on Sunday the 20th, we see this little bit of a boundary here is creeping eastward. We do see a slight cool down trying to move in behind this air mass, but there's a lot of more mild push taking place. Also, our MDR system has somehow meandered its way into the Caribbean. This is not the homegrown one. This is our main system that we've been watching that does have some chance in the longer range to develop. Let's keep going one step further towards Monday here on October 21st. And we see a couple of interesting things here. Again, Caribbean watching some tropical concerns there. This is very long range though, so take that with a grain of salt. There is a low up there in eastern Canada, and this is bringing rainfall to eastern Canada, but also some of the northeast here. We do see a weaker low across the northern plains, bringing some snowfall and rainfall, depending on where you're at. Overall, we do have a little bit maybe a sign of a cool down on the way. If we get a dragging cold front to develop underneath this low here, that could bring the colder air down into some of the central and maybe even eastern states in the longer range. So we'll be watching for that type of signal. We do have some precipitation taking place across the deeper south and southern plains, so definitely some unsettled weather could be on the horizon there for those areas. Here's as we just take a look at Tuesday morning, the very last frame of the model run. We see a stronger low now for south of the Hudson Bay. A little bit of a warm push perhaps in the west, and this could spell some interesting things, especially when we're watching this slight dip across the central plains here. This is what your jet stream's doing. This could look a little bit more beefy as we move forward into the longer range and as we get closer to this, and that could be something to watch for in terms of another cooldown. But as of now, this model isn't too bullish on that, so we'll have to see as we move forward. over the coming days, so tune in with us. We do upload every single day. Here's the total precipitation, and for a lot of areas it's underwhelming, and for a couple areas it is a little overwhelming. We do see the Northwest here seeing a particularly large amount. Also near the Great Lakes and Northeast, we're seeing decent amounts. South Central as well, some pretty decent amounts there. A little bit of a spooky look there. That looks like a spooky face. Southern Florida seeing quite a bit as well. So let's look at the anomalies real quickly, and it kind of reflects what I just mentioned. I mean, we're seeing most areas drier here, especially if you're in this corridor here. This area in particular looks rather dry compared to normal over the next 10 days. We do see an above average amount for the Northwest, South Central, Great Lakes here in particular, and then Southern Florida, so those same areas I just indicated there. Let's take a look at the total snowfall, and again, some more major amounts on the way than what we've been seeing. We do see anywhere in the grays a dusting, if anything, and we see a lot of this for southern Canada. Not only that, obviously the Cascades and Rockies, but also some of the Appalachian Mountain Range, especially the Northeast, but also down as far south as Pennsylvania, Maryland, and into West Virginia there. Maybe a dusting, and in the lighter blues, maybe an inch or two. So we are seeing some of that for West Virginia, New York, and some of the White Mountains there in New Hampshire. We see a whole lot of it across the Rockies and the Cascades there. We even get up into the purples where 6 to 10 inches could perhaps be expected. And then finally, the pinks are 10 inches plus. So we do see a lot of that with that more major snowfall system later on for Wyoming down through Colorado, as we looked at just a little bit earlier. Let's take a look here at the temperature anomalies, and we are a little bit cooler across the southeast, but that's basically where that ends. I mean, most of the country is above normal. This is all going to end in a hurry. This is tomorrow afternoon, and again, things are getting started for the northern plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast here, where this cold air mass is beginning its trek southward throughout the eastern states, and we see this warm push really taking hold out west. Let's continue this on, though. This is Monday, and we get much, much cooler for many more places here. We even see the greens popping up, which will be 10 to 15 degrees below normal, so a little bit more significant. And these purplish blues in here for New York and West Virginia, that's going to be 15 to 25 degrees below normal, so a huge departure from what is typical. Let's take a look as we keep going towards Tuesday. Again, this is approximately the peak of it. And we do see pretty widespread greens, again, 10 to 15 degrees below normal throughout portions of the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, deeper south, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast here, as well as Eastern Canada. So this is going to be a cool down that is considerable, and you're going to walk outside and you're going to feel it. So I want to iterate that, really hammer that home, because this is not just a little tiny cold snap. This is a significant cool down. It's going to be we're a little bit above normal in a lot of these places right now. Let's say 5 to 10 degrees above normal. So a lot of these areas, it's going to be a 25 degree temperature swing, maybe even more from what you have been seeing the last few days. So yes, very, very considerable. As we keep going, this lasts into Wednesday, Thursday for the East Coast, Friday, some of the Southeast still feeling it. And then finally, Saturday, we're left with neutral temperatures. I mean, we're maybe talking, like I said, 4, 5, 6 days for some spots. Could be pretty significant. We do warm up over time, but again, there is this little bit of a sign at some colder air heading eastward, where this could be looking a whole lot cooler after the 20th time frame. But we're a little far out to discuss that. We will be obviously talking about it every single day, so make sure you subscribe. Let's take a look at the tropics real quickly, though. Leslie has become a post-tropical system. Really not going to be seeing that likely even by tomorrow. We have downgraded the chances here in the MDR from a, I think, 50% chance of development down to a 30% chance over both the next 48 hours and the next 7 days. So there's a really decent shot that in a day or two we have no signs of tropical development out there in the Atlantic for the first time in a very long time. So let's all have our fingers crossed for that. I will update you guys on this every single day, and hopefully tomorrow this looks even more promising than this, but we shall see. Anyway, be sure to subscribe. As I've mentioned multiple times, we do upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.